This is the journey of one chosen child to another, sharing methods and thought processes of how my heart was led to conversion, with the sole, heartfelt desire to inspire and accompany you into your own journey with Christ. Hello all. I've introduced myself to you in the last video, but today I want to share with you what brought me to a place of closer connection with God. So even after knowing God for many years and knowing about Him throughout my youth, being in and out of a relationship with Him and just not fully entering into a full relationship with Him, I came to a point in my life where there was turmoil, and I began to follow a pattern. Every single time this particular time of turmoil came, I would cave in. I would go into a dark hole of despair, and anxiety would kick in, depression would kick in, and I'd stay there into this muddy waters of self-pity. And I was so familiar with that path that that's the only thing I knew. And I became angry that I was there, but I didn't know how to get out. And never did it cross my mind that I could just bring it to God. It sounds simple, but it wasn't that simple, because I just didn't fathom that God would actually help me with this, despite being a third-generation Christian. So one day in my desperation, I decided to come to my knees and bring this to God, and this is where my journey began. And I want to share with you 7 things that God wants us to know when we are in a time of crisis. Number 1, He wants us to consider it pure joy that we fall into diverse temptations, knowing that the trying of our faith produces patience. So let patience have its perfect work, that we may be complete and entire, lacking nothing. That's in James chapter 1. And He wants you to know that your trial will bring you to a completeness, and because He's working in you. Secondly, He wants you to look at yourself honestly and consider if there's anything you're doing to add to the situation. So He wants you to see yourself honestly. Number 3, James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, be slow to anger, slow to speak. And this is one thing. In my previous video, I shared with you my battles with caffeine and how it contributed to my anxiety. And it also contributed to me being quick to speak when I was spoken to. And that was contributing to the family conflict I was experiencing. And number 4, bridle the tongue. The tongue is a powerful weapon against us. If we don't learn to tame it, it can destroy the whole course of our life. So that was the 4th thing that God told me. That was in James chapter 3. So careful with everything that you say. Make sure that what you are saying is building others up and not tearing them down. Number 5, be a servant. Share your journey and drop the walls of fear. I'm recording this video 6 months into the future from the time I experienced this. And one of the things that God was definitely trying to tell me is that I want you to refashion your life. I want you to come to me and give me all who you are and become a servant to me, so that this can become a journey that you can share with others. And as you move closer to Christ, you will see that He will begin to use you to share His miracles with others as well. It'll just become something that you desire to do naturally, but that will come on its own. Number 6, He told me to destroy all selfish ambition. Question my motives of why I wanted what I did want. And this is where my crisis came, because I wasn't getting it. And in James chapter 3, God calls selfish ambition demonic. And because it stems from jealousy. And we know what happened with jealousy at the beginning, when the world was created and the enemy decided to be jealous of God. There's another story in the Bible by Korah, where he becomes jealous of Moses and Aaron's position, and he decides to build a couple of allies with him to rally against Aaron and Moses, and to become rebellious against them and to challenge their position. And they even tempted God And they were destroyed, swallowed up by the ground, as we know. But jealousy can bring to great destruction. And it can also bring to a lot of disorder in your life and chaos. So question your motives. And the seventh thing that God brought me to was to submit everything to Him. Submit to Him my thoughts, my ideas, my words, my motives, my plans. I came to God with, change this situation. And He turned it into change me. And I began to not look at the faults of others, but look at my faults. Not in a way to self-sabotage, but in a way to grow. Not in a way to self-destroy or self-loathe, but in such a way that you begin to see what you're really like. And that's what God wants you to see. So think of yourself when you first come to God as, I want to use the analogy here of a mudroom. That is the first place you enter when you enter a home. And say that you were coming from a trip, maybe a hiking trip, where you got mud on your shoes, all over your jacket, and you come through the door, and the first thing you do is you take off the filth that you were wearing. And that's how it is when you come first to God, is that the first thing He wants you to do is to remove all the layers of dirt that are covering you. So when He asked me to submit everything to Him, I started to look at myself honestly and just be able to somehow see suddenly the filth that was covering me. Layer by layer, God starts to strip you of everything that is not of Him. And when you are experiencing this metamorphosis, you'll start to see how God takes your life, as broken as it is, and starts to make it new. And it does hurt, because as I spent many hours on my knees and sin started to come up in my memory, I started to ask Him to forgive each one of those sins. And He started to show me how to accept His forgiveness and receive His method of doing things. And as I dwelled in His presence, I began to feel differently, and I started to see true joy start to appear in my heart, because being close to God makes you feel complete. Nothing's missing anymore. You are filling the void. Everybody has a void to belong, and when we belong to the right source, which is God, the Creator, this is where we experience true peace and true joy. So we go back to James, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you fall into diverse trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. So let patience have its perfect work, that you may be complete and entire, lacking nothing. And He says, just become a vessel. Don't bring me your plan. Bring me an empty vessel that I can use and fill. And if it's broken, I can mend it. I can fix it. Because only He could restore you to what you should be in Him.